Thanks again for joining me. Today, we're sitting down with Michelle Seiler Tucker, who is the founder and CEO of Seiler Tucker Incorporated. She holds an M&AMI, Mergers and Acquisitions Master Intermediary title, as well as Certified Mergers and Acquisitions Professional, so CM&AP. She is a Certified Senior Business Analyst, CSBA, and she has been working in not only the startup space, but more exciting for me actually is the exiting. So where are you bringing that startup once it scales and grows and now you want to have an exit event? So she is a 20-year veteran in the M&A industry. She's regarded as leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, growing businesses. Her and her firm have sold over, get this, 1,000 businesses in almost every vertical and have a remarkable track record of success. She's going to speak about, like I said, sustainable, scalability, building these sellable businesses, and basically the techniques that she has repeated again and again and again with lots of entrepreneurs. So this is an interesting one because, like, Michelle, thank you for joining me, but I'm curious to speak with you because most people speak about how to build a business and they don't have that vision or that exit event in mind, which I think they should. But, I want to hear more about that. But first, tell me your story. How do you get into this?
All right. Well, thanks, Scott, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. So I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, my God, I'm going to sell businesses. But I always knew as a kid that I was going to be my own boss. I was going to be an entrepreneur. And I didn't really come from a family of entrepreneurs. I mean, my dad owned his own business, and that was about it. But, I always knew that I knew what I liked. Even as a kid, I never played with toys. I never played with dolls. And my mom's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, no, Mom, that's the wrong question. You should be asking what's right with me. And so I would walk around with a notebook and a pen and everything and ask everybody a million questions, right? I would just walk up to strangers and start asking questions. And so my mom's like, oh my gosh, she's going to be the next Barbara Walters. So I knew I liked people and I knew I liked writing. And I would always ask people, what's your problem? Let me fix it for you. And this was at 8 years old. So I always knew I was going to be a people person, a problem solver, a writer, an entrepreneur, because I don't like anybody tell me what to do. Like, that's my biggest pet peeve is somebody telling me what to do. I mean, even with my husband of 25 years, I'm like, don't tell me what to do. And so it's, so I've always owned businesses, and I've owned businesses in different industries, different verticals. But I did kind of get caught up in corporate America. Xerox recruited me. I went to work for Xerox. I said, you know what? Let me try this corporate position, Fortune 500. And so I did that. I was there for about 6 months in sales. And my nickname became the closer because every time they couldn't close something, they would come to me and say, Michelle, go close this deal. You're the closer. So I was the closer. And then my manager came to me and she said, you should really throw your hat in the ring and interview for the vice president regional position for Xerox. She goes, you will never get it because you've been here 6 months, and Xerox doesn't promote when somebody's only been here 6 months. You're up against people who have been here 5, 10, 15 years. I said, well, if I'm not going to get it, why would I do it? Why would I waste my time? And she says, well, it's a 3-month grueling process. She goes, but it is a learning process, and you'll learn more doing this than anything else. And, everybody knows Xerox has like one of the best training programs in the world, right? So I threw my name in the hat. She was right. It was a 3-month grueling process. And, we had to meet with all the top level executives at Xerox all around the world and do Q&As, presentations, demonstrations of their equipment to them. So it was very pressure and a lot of pressure. And I ended up getting it when everybody said I wouldn't get it. So I guess I truly am the closer. So
after 6 months at Xerox, it's not bad.
I know.
That's not bad.
But what happened was, Xerox did what most companies should never do. You don't take your top salesperson and promote them to management. Big mistake. And I didn't like it. When I went into management, I'm like, oh my gosh, all we're doing is setting meetings to have more meetings, to schedule more follow-up meetings. All we're doing is meetings. So we weren't doing what I love anymore. Like, we weren't meeting with the clients. We weren't building lifetime relationships. So I told my husband, I said, I really, really miss entrepreneurship, but I don't want to leave my 6-figure career with great benefits, right? And so I stumbled across a franchise that had 2 locations, and my husband knew the owner. And I said, look, I want to buy a franchise, operate it on the side. And they said, no, we don't want you to buy a franchise. We want you to partner with us because we know of your reputation. We know you're the closer, and partner with us and we'll give you a franchise. And I said, wow. I said, well, I'm not going to leave Xerox for a franchisor that has 2 locations, because you're not very successful. So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll try it for 6 months, because you don't have to say yes or say no. Sometimes there's a middle road, right, that you can take. So I said, let me keep my great position here, because I was climbing up the Xerox ladder really quickly. And I said, let me try it for 6 months and see what happens. Within 6 months, I sold so many franchises, I quadrupled my salary at Xerox. So then it became a no-brainer to leave Xerox, partner with this franchisor, and they gave me a franchise. Now, here's the problem. A lot of business owners will start a business, but they never build the foundation. They never put in the infrastructure for it to succeed. So they focus on sales. But what happens when you get all these clients coming in and you don't have the infrastructure? So they were over-promising, under-delivering. They weren't servicing the franchisees. And I realized very quickly that our values weren't aligned. So at that point, I said, buy me out. So then I said, well, gosh, what am I going to do now? So then I said, I'll just transition to selling businesses. How much harder can it be? So then I transitioned to selling companies, small businesses at first, and I transitioned very quickly to selling large businesses, and then learned that what Steve Forbes said is true. 8 out of 10 businesses don't sell. And by the way, Steve Forbes endorsed my book, Exit Rich. So I said, if I don't fix them and grow them and build to sell, I'm going to starve to death and have to go back to Xerox. So that's my story.
I like the story. And it's interesting how one point that I just want to take out of that is that you didn't go full into entrepreneurship and just totally negate your job. Like when you did that, when you took the franchise and you started and you were successful at it eventually, you still did it smartly. You did it the correct way. And you sort of dipped your toe into the water, so to speak. And then you found out it was successful. You sort of took that. That's a smart entrepreneurial lesson, because I think that people sometimes, like you said, they start businesses, they don't know what they're doing. They put all their life savings or their energy into it, and they just quit their job and they go full tilt. That's usually, if they don't have the right mentorship, that's going to screw them over, really. Okay, so you found out that you're good at selling businesses. What is the market? What is the industry? Who are your competitors? Are you competing with lawyers, or who else does what you do?
No, I'm not competing with lawyers at all. I never compete with lawyers. Typically, other M&A advisors. I belong to M&A Source, so other M&A advisors, other brokers from time to time, sometimes investment bankers. Those are my competitors, really. But it's not a really competitive industry. It's not like a lot of other industries. Like real estate is so competitive. Everybody sells real estate. So it's not as competitive as you would think. I mean, there's 32 million businesses in the United States, and there's probably 3,000, brokerage firms, M&A firms.
So how do you choose which businesses that you want to help sell? What's the business that you go after?
Yeah, and I don't just sell businesses. I want to just make that clear. Yeah. I really specialize in buying, selling, fixing, growing. So I buy businesses and flip them. I also partner with business owners because there are a lot of businesses that are not sellable for the price tag that the owner needs to exit their business. So I'll partner with business owners, investing my money, resources, time, energy, effort, and expertise. Or, like I said, I'll buy and flip. Or I'll say, look, this is your plan. Build. This is what you need to do. Come back to me when you're done.
Yeah. And
now we have an online build to sell course that we're finalizing, so business owners can walk through that course. So the way that I decide who I'm going to sell is me personally. My businesses that I focus on are typically $10 million and up in purchase price, but I have a team of analysts and a team of agents, and they'll sell smaller businesses. But for me, for my company to decide to take on a client, the owner has to be realistic. The owner has to understand valuation. If they want $20 million for their business and their business is worth $5 million, then either they're going to have to work with us at $5 million or not work with us at all. There are plenty of brokers and advisors that will take that engagement and just put it on the market and hope somebody educates their seller. I don't do that. If my sellers are not coachable from the beginning, and if they're not going to listen to my expertise, then I really don't want them as clients. They're going to ruin my statistics too.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's a good point.
Closing rate.
It's a good point. And actually, I sort of got ahead of myself. I got excited about trying to figure out, who your, target customer is. You mentioned, I was actually watching, before we jumped on this, I watched your sizzle reel on YouTube, I think. And you made a really good point, and you do a lot of keynote speaking, which is that's impressive, because I think that this is something that entrepreneurs have to hear. You said a lot of people build themselves a job and not a business. Let's start. That's like sort of like the basics. So what does that mean? What do entrepreneurs screw up?
So that is the basis. And that's one of the biggest reasons that businesses are not sellable, that 8 out of 10 businesses don't sell, because entrepreneurs have built themselves a job, meaning that the business is attached to them. They're doing everything. And I'll give you some examples. Let's say you have a dental practice, one dentist, dental hygienist. You pull that one dentist out of the dental practice. Is there a business? No. The dentist has created a job to where he goes to work every day. He hasn't created a business that works for him. He can't take long vacations. He can't leave his practice. And that's a job. That's not a business. Same thing with chiropractor. We're trying to sell a chiropractic clinic right now. They had 2 chiropractors, and the owner was just so confident that those 2 chiropractors were staying, and guess what? They're not. So now we're back to square one. So you got to build a business that can operate without you. And that's the first P that we talk about, the 6 Ps, the ST 6 Ps in Exit Rich, is people. You got to build a business. You don't build a business, you build people, and people build the business. Otherwise, you just have a glorified job.
Yeah. Yeah. I like, and actually, that's a good segue into that point, because you have frameworks and models. And of course, these frameworks are meant for exiting. That is your bread and butter. Like, you at one point want to have a transaction for the business. But there's 2 models that you mentioned. We were chatting before. There's GPS exit model and 6 Ps. These are proprietary. You sort of built these over your career. This is what you teach entrepreneurs. I think these are good models to go through regardless of having that exit plan today, because I think these are just really, really good frameworks for building successful businesses, period. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I would love to just sort of dissect at a high level. Obviously, you can't go into all the detail on the podcast, but at a high level, what are these frameworks? Which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, we'll start with the GPS exit model, because then it kind of leads into the 6 Ps.
Okay.
All right. So, and Exit Rich is not just about selling your business. Because like you said earlier, whether you want to sell now or later, Exit Rich is actually about building a sustainable, scalable asset so that you actually have something to sell when you're ready. Mm-hmm. There are so many business owners that would love to sell, but they're being forced to sell for pennies on a dollar, close their business, or file bankruptcy. When I wrote Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth in 2013, I did the research back then, and I, found out that 85 to 95% of startups would close, right? We all know that. Startups are always at great risk. Those 1 to 5 years are the most vulnerable where a startup will go out of business. But guess what, Scott? When I wrote Exit Rich in 2019 and 2020, I did the same research, and I learned that the business landscape has changed dramatically. Mm-hmm. It's only 30%. It's a flip-flop. It's only 30% now of startups that will go out of business. Only 30%. Startups are at less risk. But out of 27.6 million companies, those businesses that have been in business for 10 years or longer, 70% of those businesses will go out of business. 70%.
They're failing.
That's a huge number.
Later. They're failing much later. They're failing
much later. You just hit the nail on the head. It used to be, Scott, that if you were in business 5, 6, 10 years, you're golden, right? Yeah. You can write your ticket. That's not the case anymore. The business landscape has changed. Now, you hear about the public companies all the time, like Toys R Us. Been in business 70 years, gone. Kmart, gone. Sears, having trouble. JCPenney's, Montgomery Ward, Steinmart, Pier 1, GNC, closing down 900 locations. But what you're not hearing about are the private companies. Those are public companies. You're not hearing about the private companies on every street corner in every state, across our great nation. So the reason for this is because business owners they stop doing one thing I call AIM, which is always innovate and market, because Amazon has changed the way that consumers purchase products and services. Amazon has made it so easy to purchase anything. You can practically buy a horse on Amazon and have it delivered to you in 2 days. Yeah. So business owners have to keep innovating. Okay. So the GPS exit model is set up for success. And the problem with business owners is they don't think about selling until a catastrophic event has occurred. You know, they'll call me up when they say, look, there was a death, you know, that the owner died, or there's health issues, or there's marital issues. We're going to have a divorce.
Or COVID.
You know, or COVID.
You know,
or a hurricane, or a tsunami, or a tornado, or fires in California. I mean, the list just goes on and on. The worst time to sell your business is when a catastrophic event occurs, because the business is typically trending downward. So business owners don't have a plan. And the GPS exit is designed to plan your exit from day one of starting or buying your business. So number one, when you want to drive somewhere, what's the first thing that we all do now? We don't pull out maps anymore. You're too young to remember maps. But now we pull out our phone, right? We pull out our phone. We plug in our destination. It's so easy these days. We'll plug in our destination, and we tell our GPS where we want to go. Well, same thing in business. The business owners need to figure out their end game. They need a destination to drive to. They need to figure out what they want to sell their business for. So if they say, look, I want to sell my business for $20 million, great. Now we have a start of a plan. We have a number. We have a target, right? Now what does the GPS need to know? The GPS needs to know, well, where are you starting from? What's your current location? So business owners need to know their current valuation. Now, Scott, I've been in this industry for 20 years. Humans get physical annual checkups every year, right? Mm-hmm. The humans that want to stay on this earth for a long time. We take our cars into the shop and we get checkups on our automobiles. But we never get a valuation checkup on our business. It is financial suicide, because there are things that happen that increase your valuation and decrease your valuation. COVID has decreased the valuation for a lot of companies, but there's other industries that it's increased the valuation for. So know your end game. I want to sell for $20 million. Know where you're starting at. What is your business worth today? Let's say it's worth $5 million. The problem is that business owners don't have a roadmap, so they drive around in circles, going up and down the financial hills to end up nowhere or out of business. And that's what we want to prevent. So once you know your end game, $20 million, you know your current valuation, $5 million, now you need to know time frame. So let's say you want to do this in 10 years. Now we have a start of a plan. We need to reverse engineer it. Now guess what you need to know? Who your buyers are going to be. Mm-hmm. I say buyers, not buyer. So many sellers put their eggs in one buyer's basket, and I can promise you, in all likelihood, that deal will fall apart. So you need backup buyers. There's 5 types of buyers. So let me tell you who's not going to be your buyer. A startup is not going to, a first-time buyer is not going to buy your business because your business is $20 million. Startup first-time buyers cannot afford a $20 million company. So first-time buyers is one type of buyer. Turnaround specialists are not going to buy your company. So it's either going to be a private equity group, strategic/competitor, or a serial entrepreneur. Now you need to know, well, what's the numbers need to look like? For me to sell for $20 million, where's the gross revenues have to be? Where's the profit margins? Most importantly, where does the EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, have to fall? So if you're going to sell for $20 million, your EBITDA is going to have to be around $3 to $4 million. Mm-hmm. Then you need to know what's the characteristics, what are the synergies that buyers will pay top dollar for. And then you build that business based upon that blueprint of what buyers are looking for. That's how you create a bidding war. So when you're ready to sell that asset in 10 years, you're ready. You're not having to start from the beginning. And then you need to know your why. Why do you want to sell a business for $20 million? Because how many people have come up with goals or New Year's resolutions, Scott, and they never keep them?
All of them.
all of them. That's right. So you have to have and the reason they don't keep them is because they don't have a powerful why. The why has to be so strong that it has to keep you motivated. It has to keep you in the game. It has to keep you, weathering the financial storms and all the catastrophic events that occur, because they will occur. So you got to have a powerful, powerful why to keep you motivated. And then once you figure that out, start building a business on the 6 Ps. Any questions on that?
No. Well, I'm going to ask what the 6 Ps are. I guess my question, because you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, is why is this not more common sense? Why is this not something that people like? It makes sense to me when you explain it. It makes sense to me to have the vision. It makes sense to me that even if you don't know if you want to sell, to aim for the KPIs and the milestones that that an investor would deem to be a purchasable business. Because if your business is purchasable, you're probably doing pretty well, right? You're probably doing pretty good. So it's a good goal to have. So why not? Why do people not take this into account?
You know, common sense is not very common.
That's one of my favorite sayings too.
And I think what happens, because like you said, I mean, it's so logical, it's so common sense that build a business, even if you don't want to sell it, at least you got a profitable asset that's making you money and it's on cruise control, right? So I think the biggest reason why is because business owners just get so stuck in the mentality of running their business, you know, and I call entrepreneurs firefighters. Because what are they really doing? They're in the business putting out fires. Every day, lots of fires occur, right? And so a lot of entrepreneurs are wearing a lot of different hats, and they're putting out all these different fires, and they're working in the chaos, in the business versus on the business. You need to work on the business as a visionary and have an integrator that can carry out your vision and make sure it gets integrated, make sure it gets implemented. So I think business owners just go so stuck in their head. Plus, they think, oh, this is my baby. I'll never sell my baby. You know, it just makes no sense. It's the same thing like a parent that has kids. What do? We plan for our kids, right? Where they're going to go to school, where they're going to go to college. And, you know, if we do estate planning, we have a will, but we don't plan for the biggest asset. And I think it's just because business owners just have these blinders on, and they're not thinking about their future. All they're thinking about is today. And that's why we have to change it, because if we don't change it, we're going to have a lot more than 70% of businesses go out of business. And small business is a backbone of our economy, employing over half the U.S. workforce. If we lose small business, we lose our economy.
Yeah, well, not only, and now with the tumultuous nature of brick and mortar and wherever that's going to end up after, you know, pandemic and lockdown, I think that this future proofing and planning is probably more important than ever. So
absolutely, and you just made a great point. This pandemic also changed the way that we purchase products and services. Yeah. It changed what's important to us. It changed how we buy things. You know, Amazon changed it first, and now the pandemic changed it even more. Nobody even wants to go to the grocery store anymore.
No, I've gotten good at grocery delivery. I've gotten really good at it. It's interesting how much we've shifted, like our habits, just in the past year.
Habits can shift very quickly, but the problem is the business owners are not pivoting enough to keep up with the shift in habits.
And you mentioned that I've when you said that AIM, what was it? What's the acronym? I liked
always
it a lot.
Innovate and market.
Yeah, I love that acronym. It's so relevant. I think the last year's shown that it's more relevant than ever. But that's one of the best acronyms I've heard to teach over to entrepreneurs for sure.
Thank you.
The other thing I want to touch on, because it's obviously, this is part of this framework, like this is part of, Exit Rich and what you do for entrepreneurs, the 6 Ps. What are the 6 Ps? I'm sure they're very valuable for entrepreneurs. That's why I want to go into them.
So yeah, they are very valuable. And let me tell you, even if you're not going to sell your business, if you use this foundation, you're going to have a profitable business that can operate without you. So number 1 is people, right? People is number 1. You don't build a business, you build people, and people build the business. You got to make sure that the business is not dependent upon you, because buyers want to buy a business, not a job. So you have to have the right people in the right seats. So many entrepreneurs want to do everything. Entrepreneurs need to focus on their strengths and hire their weaknesses. Focus on their strengths, hire their weaknesses, and make sure you have the right people in the right seat. And then, Scott, most importantly, ask the who question. Who opens the door? Who handles customers? Who deals with marketing? Who handles customer relations, customer service issues, legal, accounting, workers' comp? Who handles environmental, logistics, transportation, manufacturing? I mean, the list just goes on and on. The clue is you should never be next to the who, Scott. So the best way to build a business without you is to make sure you have answered the who and put the right people in the right seat and have a layer of management. Most entrepreneurs are not good managers. A lot of entrepreneurs are not always good leaders or not always good at operations. So focus on your strengths, hire your weaknesses. And then the second P is product. And product is more crucial now than ever before. And that's the industry you're in. So you have to ask yourself, is your industry on the way up, on the way out? Are you thriving or dying? Do you have an Amazon or a Blockbuster? And if you have a Blockbuster, don't panic. This is not the time to panic. This is the time to align yourself with an expert and try to, a lot of times an expert, an outsider can see things that you cannot see. Because when you're in your fog, it's foggy, right? You're in the middle of the chaos. It's hard to read the label from the inside of the bottle.
Yeah.
So I always say get an outsider's perspective and ask 3 transformational questions if you're in an industry that's dying. Number 1, do what Amazon did. Number 1, Amazon asked themselves, what business are we in? And this was years ago. We're in the book selling business. What do we do really, really, really well, better than anybody else? We do fulfillment better than anyone else. What business should we be in? We should be in a fulfillment business. They moved that quickly into fulfillment. Those 3 transformational. Now remember, transformational. So many business owners are in transactional. You got to get out of transactional and become transformational. Those 3 questions took Amazon from a small bookseller to a multi-billion-dollar worldwide conglomerate that they are today. Okay? So those 3 transformational questions. And then the third P is processes. Processes. So many business owners, Scott, never really think about processes until something happened. Let's say all of a sudden somebody gets hurt in a warehouse. Oh my gosh, we need a process for health and safety. Or clients get upset and they're bashing a company on the internet. Oh my gosh, we need a process for customer appreciation. Processes need to be designed from the beginning of your company. Have you ever watched a movie, The Founder, based upon the McDonald's brothers? McDonald's?
With Ray Kroc. Yeah.
Yeah, with Ray Kroc. Did you watch that movie?
Yeah, I did. And that he was almost like obsessive about process, where he was timing how people were moving around the kitchen. That's what you're talking about. Yes,
but even before Ray Kroc, the McDonald brothers, back in the 40s, they had the drive-up Sonic-type restaurants.
Yeah.
But back in the 40s, they never really perfected the processes, so the food was always cold, the order was always wrong, and it took so long. So McDonald's back in the 40s, without Ray Kroc, said, we want to design a restaurant, fast food restaurant, with the customer experience in mind. What is our customer objective? We want our customers to get great tasting food that's hot in 2 minutes or less. How do we do that? Do you remember when they went out to the empty tennis courts? This is way before Ray Kroc.
I do actually. Yeah, I do. I now I'm thinking back. I had watched it on Netflix a while ago, I think, but I can't remember what they did. But I remember the scene, sort of.
They went to the empty tennis courts. They took all their employees and they said, "Okay, let's figure this out." And they drew it out and they erased it and drew it out, and they were there all day until they finally figured out who takes the order, who toasts the buns, who cooks the burgers, who puts the pickles on the buns, who gives the order to the clients 2 minutes or less. Those processes, now, yes, they get perfected as you go. Yes, they get tweaked as you go. But those processes is why you can eat at a McDonald's in Singapore, or McDonald's in Australia or USA, because the processes are designed with the customer experience in mind. No matter where you are, it's the same experience.
Yeah. It was almost like there was almost like they got it to they were choreographing almost the workflow of
they were choreographing.
Food. Yeah,
absolutely.
I remember that.
And they did it with the customer experience in mind. This is a point I want to drive home to your listeners. So many business owners map their processes with their objective, not with the customers. And that's why they have a lot of unhappy clients. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of processes that really alienate us. Think about when you're trying to call your credit card company and you have to push all these buttons. You have to push like 12 buttons before you can get a live person. That's not a good process. And there's so many processes. Think about how much business you do with other companies that really are like, oh my God, that's a terrible process. They really should rethink that, right? Mm-hmm. Processes should always be designed with the customer experience in mind, be productive, efficient. Here's the caveat: well documented in a policy procedure manual with SOP checklists. You'd be surprised how many companies, 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 million, that don't have good documented processes. Okay. I can't even emphasize enough how
because it
important
doesn't
this
matter
is.
if it's stuck up here in the CEO's head. It has to be something you can teach and something
Well,
you
and
can replicate.
that's another brilliant point. We have a fabrication company we've been trying to sell for a little while. And and I knew it was a problem when I took it on, but I took it on as a favor to a friend. 2 owners, been in business 35 years, Scott, 4 employees. Where's all the data? In their head. The reason we haven't been able to sell it is because the owners are like almost 80, and the buyers are like, there is so much information in their head, none of it's documented. We don't know what to do after we would buy the business, how we would operate that business. So it's really important to get that document out of the CEO's head onto paper, so it can be duplicated. Right?
Yeah, no, very good. Okay, we got 3 P's left. I want to make sure that we don't run out of time because it's really good stuff, but we could probably go for longer. Anyway,
so we got
what are the last 3
proprietary.
P's?
All right,
Yeah,
so the last two are quick, but proprietary is going to take me a little bit of time because proprietary is the highest value driver. Proprietary can take you from a 5 multiple to a 10x multiple like that. So number 1 in proprietary is branding. How well branded are you? The bigger the brand, the bigger the price. You know, as long as that brand, Scott, is relevant in the mind of the consumers. Is anybody going to pay anything for Blockbuster?
Not today.
Not today.
Netflix turned it down a few times for a couple. Or who was it? Was it No, it wasn't Netflix was competing. Who was the one who? There was one company who. I think it was. Oh, I can't remember. Not Netflix. Remember. I mean, there was a company that offered Blockbuster to purchase Blockbuster, and I think they turned it down.
Yeah, they should have taken it. And they were offered to buy Netflix, and they turned that down. That's
what I meant, sir.
Yeah, so they could have bought Netflix, and they turned that down. Big mistake. And they also didn't aim. They didn't innovate. So branding is huge. The biggest brand in the world is, you know?
I don't know. Well, I guess Amazon. Everybody knows Amazon. I don't know. Tesla's up there right now.
What is this? Apple. Apple.
Oh, I see. I was sorry. I was looking up who offered to buy Blockbuster. I was trying to figure out the name of the company. Sorry, I switched off the video. My bad.
Apple is the biggest brand in the world. The Apple brand is worth $189 billion with a B. $1 billion. That's without cash flow. That's without equipment, inventory, receivables, assets, anything, real estate. So build your brand, build your exit. Trademarks, Scott, very important. Yeah. Trademarks. Here's the problem in America. Business owners go start a business or they buy a business. This works on the buying side too. And they never check the federal database. They go and get a state trademark for their company name. They're in business 5, 10, 15, 20 years. All of a sudden, they receive a letter in the mail that says you have to cease and desist. Stop using this company name because somebody else has your federal trademark. Spend the $1,500 to $2,000 and protect your company name. If you have a podcast and you're starting to build some momentum, you better go trademark that. Get a federal trademark. I registered Exit Rich. I registered the 6 Ps and the GPS exit model. Go protect your IP. Also, patents, huge. Huge. Do you watch Shark Tank?
Yeah, I do.
Every shark always asks what question to inventors?
Yeah. Do you have a patent? Do you have a trademark? Yeah. Do you have?
Do you have a patent? Do you have a patent?
Yeah.
So go out and get those patents. Very, very important to get those patents. All right. And we sold a company for $18 million. It was losing money, but they had 18 patents. We sold it for $1 million a patent. The other things that are valuable are contracts. Manufacturing contracts, vendor contracts, distributor contracts, franchisor, if you have a bunch of franchisees. The most valuable of all contracts are client contracts because buyers want to buy cash flow and they want to make sure you have recurring revenue. You got customers on contracts, so they're going to continue to get money for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Here's a caveat to contracts. They have to have the 2-sentence transferability clause. If y'all haven't learned anything yet, learn that. The 2-sentence transferability clause, because 99.9% of all sales are asset sales, not stock. And if you have 300 contracts and they're not transferable, it literally could stop the deal in its tracks. Okay.
And in databases, And when you sell, is it normal that when you create these contracts, that's what you're setting up ahead of time so that the client can't exit the contract when the business sells?
Correct. There was a franchisor that sold that had 1,500 franchisees. The buyers, private equity group, by the way, never did their due diligence. The legal side never did all the due diligence. They did due diligence, but they never looked at the contracts. None of the contracts were transferable. They had this big party for all the franchisees. 2 franchisees transferred over. All the rest of them started their own franchise together because they didn't have a non-compete, because the franchise agreement was null and void, because it was not transferable in the asset sale. That private equity group ended up going out of business, ended up filing bankruptcy, and suing their entire legal department.
Wow.
For not protecting them.
Wow.
So make sure. So databases, really important databases. Databases are typically overlooked by most advisors. You could be losing money, but you could sell. What we're talking about right now are synergies. Databases is a synergy. Contracts are a synergy. Patents are a synergy. So you could be losing money and sell your database. Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp. WhatsApp was hemorrhaging, but they had 1 billion users, right? So what I'm trying to get your listeners to understand is build these synergies, because this is what gets you the highest price, and this is what creates a bidding war. And then last but not least, in proprietary, and I'm almost done with this, is what I call IP real estate. IP real estate. Let's say that you have a skincare line and you're on Oprah's Favorite Things and Oprah Winfrey has endorsed it. Do you know how much money that's going to get you for the sale of your company?
Yeah.
Let's say that you manufacture couches and furniture, and you're number 1 on Wayfair. Number 1 on Wayfair, number 1 on Etsy, number 1 on Amazon. Any of those search engines is huge. Strategic will play a huge penny for that. Okay. So that's it for proprietary. My 4th P is patrons. And that's your customer database. Most business owners follow 80-20 rule, where 80% of their business comes from 20% of their clients.
Yeah.
If they lose a couple clients, then they could literally be out of business. So you want customer diversification, not customer concentration. A lot of businesses have customer concentration. Plus, if you're aging, if your business is, 15, 20, 30 years, guess what? Your clients are probably aging out. So you always have to innovate, so you can get the millennials. The millennials don't buy the same way that baby boomers and Gen X buy. Okay. And then the last P, the most important P to entrepreneurs, is profits. Everybody's in this to make money. But profits are never the problem. They're always the symptom of not operating on one of the other 5 Ps. Clients will come to me and say, Michelle, I have a profit problem. I'm like, no, you have a people problem. You have the wrong people. You're trying to do everything yourself. Or no, you have a process problem. Your process is costing you this much waste, which is causing you to lose money. So profits is never the problem. It's always the symptom. And so if you're not making money, go back and look at those 5 Ps.
So that's really it. If somebody's focused on the profit, then they're all about the lagging indicators for why their business is failing.
It is a good KPI. If you're not profitable, that is a key performance indicator that you're missing some of these 5 Ps.
Yeah, very, very smart. And that's, like I said, I knew it was going to be a good framework. Those are all very good points. And I think that if you're building
common sense, all right.
It is until you're stuck in the day to day and you don't have time to think about it, or you're stressed and you keep putting it off. I'll reevaluate my standard operating procedures later on. I'll reevaluate, I'll look at my workforce. I'll make sure that I'll audit my team, like all that. I have to push that out till later because I'm chasing a big client. I'm doing all these different things that I probably shouldn't be doing as a CEO or a founder.
That's why you have to have an integrator.
Yeah.
That's why you have to have somebody, because visionaries are typically not the integrators and you can't do everything yourself. So you have to have somebody else that makes sure your policies and procedures are intact. Make sure that your IP is protected. Make sure you got checks and balances that somebody's not stealing money in your company. I mean, this happens all the time. I would say probably 1 out of 5 companies I've worked with had an embezzlement problem.
Jeez, that's it's surprising that it's at that level. But if if the entrepreneur's not paying attention, then you can't just assume everyone's going to be trustworthy if they're given the accounts, the books, all that for years, and nobody's paying attention to what they're doing.
That's why you got to have checks and balances and inspect what you expect. Trust but verify.
Very good. Okay. To close up, I have a couple rapid fire questions just to bring out some last insights from you, your career. Is there anything that was from your book or something to do with what you do that you wanted to bring up that we didn't talk about?
I do want to tell your listeners where they can go buy Exit Rich because we're in the middle of pre-sales.
Okay, let's do it. Actually, you know what? Tell them at the end. Tell them at the end because you'll give your social stuff and they're going to go check you out and go get the book probably on Amazon or wherever it's listed. But what I'll ask you now, just a few rapid fire questions from your career because I want to draw out some lessons. So somebody who is looking to work in M&A, right? I actually made the mistake of saying, are you competing with lawyers? Investment bankers is probably a smarter thing to compare your work with. I guess I'm just thinking suits for whatever reason. But if somebody wants to work in M&A, what do they do? What do they have to learn? How would they pursue a career like yours?
Yeah, so the M&A world is not an easy world. It's actually a pretty tough world with about a 98% failure rate. So the first thing you want to do is not do it alone. You want to, maybe find an organization that has, multiple locations or somebody that's opening up multiple locations, or go work in an M&A firm. We have a partnership program. So if somebody's looking to get in an M&A, they can partner with us. And we have, a 5-day training course. We have a 600-page training manual. We do all the valuations, all the SIMs, all the corporate legwork here. And we provide all the leads and everything else. So I would just say don't do it alone. Go into business with somebody so you're in business, for yourself, but not by yourself because it is a tough industry.
Mm-hmm. That's good
and you
advice.
need credibility. The most important thing in M&A is credibility.
What is one myth about selling a business that you want to debunk?
One myth about selling a business that I want to debunk, that the sellers think they can do this on their own.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you need heart surgery, you're going to rip up in your chest and pull your heart out and operate on it and stick it back in your chest? No. Selling a business is your most prized asset. You need an expert. There's too many things that can go wrong.
That's good advice. A lesson that you would tell your younger self?
Get a mentor early on. Align yourself with mentors and experts who've been down your path early on. I didn't really start getting a mentor or start working with any type of mentors or leaders until probably 2011, 2012.
Mm-hmm. Start that earlier.
Yeah.
And then last question.
I'll probably be president of the United States if I'd have started earlier.
Yeah, that's true.
Although they don't make enough.
Yeah, fair. Last question. In business or career, what does success mean to you?
Success to me means lots of referrals. It means that I've really made an impact on somebody's life, that I've really helped somebody succeed or helped somebody, sell their legacy. Success to me means that I help business owners exit rich when so many of them are unfortunately exiting poor.
I like that. I like that a lot because, you're killing it from a professional point of view. You're making money, but it's a feel-good story at the end of the day too.
Right.
So it is also very unselfish when you think about like what you're doing. It's a good feel. Okay. Most importantly, where can people get the book, pre-order the book, check you out on social? I have all your handles, but list them off and I'll put them in the links too.
Okay. So first and foremost, let me just tell them a little bit more about the book. I'm really proud that Steve Forbes endorsed the book because that means Steve Forbes doesn't put his name on everything. Plus the book is the ink original. I was surprised that he endorsed it when it was an ink original. And because they publish books too, Forbes does. And then Sharon Lecter's my co-author who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. She's a 5 times New York best time selling author. Plus she's written several books in the Napoleon Hill Foundation. She's a CPA, a financial literacy expert, the advisor to many different presidents, and her husband is an intellectual property attorney. So at the end of every chapter, you have her wisdom at the end of every chapter from her perspective and sometimes her husband's perspective, especially when we talk about proprietary. And then we have some really heavy hitter testimonials from like Les Brown, who I love and adore, Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, and Forbes
You got
Riley.
some big names on there. You got some very big names on there. Good for you. Congratulations.
David Meltzer. You have some really, really big names. And then, so where can I get Exit Rich? I can go to, and by the way, Exit Rich also is not just about selling. It's about building that foundation. But there's 6 or 7 chapters dedicated to valuations and how to negotiate with each of the different types of buyers and what's the important negotiating techniques to each one of those buyers. Okay. So anyway, go to exitrichbook.com. We're in the middle of pre-sales. They can get the book right now for $24.79, which is less expensive than Amazon. We will email the digital download to them immediately, Scott, so they don't have to wait. And then when the book is launched, we will send a hardcover to their doorstep to anybody in the USA. Outside the USA, we'll send them the Kindle. And then they will all get a lifetime membership into Exit Rich Book Club. Exit Rich Book Club is video content of me training all these different principles, strategies, and techniques that I've built over the last 20 years. Plus, even more importantly than that, it's documents. So a lot of business owners are like, Michelle, what do you have an example of an employee handbook or non-compete or an org chart or a policy and procedure manual? And then a lot of business owners are like, I don't even know what a letter of intent looks like or what a purchase agreement looks like or sample due diligence checklist or closing docs. And here's the thing about all these documentations. They're worth thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to get them created or to look for them on the web. And I have them all right there for your immediate download. So that right there was worth probably $25,000 right there. And then we also give them a free membership in the Club CEOs, which is a mastermind. It's an entrepreneurial group where we do hot seats, Q&As, and things of that nature.
Awesome. No, I'm glad you broke that down. I didn't realize there was so much to it. So you get the book, but then you get a whole bunch of other. You get a whole bunch of other,
and you get the whole bunch of other now. Like you don't have to wait till the launch date. You get it all right now, and then we send this beautiful 360-page hardcover to your doorstep. Okay,
amazing,
325 pages.
And just to reiterate, it's not. A lot of people come on the show and speak about books, and some of the books, some of the books are just based on their life, and some of the books are highly specific to what they've done in their career. Just from talking to you, I feel comfortable saying that this is for any entrepreneur, not just if you're exiting, obviously, but really like the principles that you're discussing. I've worked with entrepreneurs. I've worked in a lot of different business environments. And these are all things that people have to learn. So I think that, that's a lot of value for a book. And I think I'll probably end up checking it out after this because there's a couple things that I want to learn. I think I might have access to that mastermind group too. That'd be useful for me. So that's really good. That's really, really good.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you. And we're always adding more content to the library too.
What are your outside of the book? Do you have other places that people should go to connect with you? Social, website?
So my website is seilertucker.com, seilertucker.com. And they can also text Michelle to 888-526-5750. And all of my social media will pop up. So I have Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I have all that stuff.